to The O, the inaugural interview program about Oxnard. Today, our guest is Mayor Tim Flynn. We want to ask him questions about Oxnard. What is his past in Oxnard? What is his present? And what is his vision for Oxnard? Hopefully, if you continue the show, we're going to look for different perspectives. But today, we have the Mayor of Oxnard, Mr. Tim Flynn. Mayor,
Hi.
Mayor Flynn,
Hi,
hello.
how are you? Good.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for being our inaugural guest.
Thank you.
First off, I want to focus the show on Oxnard and the people who consider Oxnard their home and the people who consider Oxnard the place that they want to help. And I think you're the perfect guest for this inaugural show.
Thank you.
Can I ask, what are your earliest memories of Oxnard?
Actually, my earliest memories of Oxnard are right here in the downtown, in particular Plaza Park and a lot of the buildings that used to surround this area that are no longer here, right where the theater is, right next door to the Carnegie, right across the street here from the plaza. I remember the DMV being located here. I remember actually going in the DMV office with my mom. I was thinking about it last night, and I believe she was going to renew her license at the age of 26. So I was 5 years old, and I remember those early memories here downtown. And let me tell you something, there were a lot of restaurants downtown. There was a lot of activity. Everybody who did shopping, of course, they came to Oxnard. So it was those are my initial memories of Oxnard.
And being, now were you born in Oxnard?
Actually, I was born in Santa Barbara.
Okay.
And in 1961, my parents moved to initially El Rio because my dad got a teaching job from, I think, the Ventura Unified School District, if I'm not mistaken. The salary there was $4,000 a year to start, and the entry-level salaries in Santa Barbara were $3,000 a year. So he was going to make 25% more by coming to Ventura County. I might add that my dad actually was born in Ojai in 1933. So my family came actually even a little bit before that, in 1927. So we're not far away from maybe close to a century that my family actually came to Ventura County. But wow. my dad grew up in Santa Barbara County, went to school at Santa Ynez High School, and then went to UCSB after enlisting in the Korean War. And there at UCSB is where he met my mom, and they got married. I born in Santa Barbara at St. Francis Hospital, and the first year of my life I lived in Isla Vista while my parents worked in the first integrated fraternity. I don't know if it was countrywide, at least the order. And I was actually, a newborn baby, and I would be upstairs, and my mom would be downstairs cooking in the kitchen because they did the cooking and the tending for the fraternity, and she could hear me because if I cried, there was a little tube up to the upstairs, and she could hear me cry, wake up. So anyway, that's how I kind of got started. But no, I was born in Santa Barbara, came in 1961. My sister was also born in Santa Barbara, and all of my other brothers and sisters, four others, were born here in Oxnard.
Now, your childhood that you remember was here in Oxnard. Where did you go to school?
I went to Santa Clara Elementary, Santa Clara High School.
Okay.
So very simple. I didn't jump around. I had a lot of stability in education, and I went to Santa Clara Elementary also even for kindergarten, and that was the natural progression. You started at Santa Clara, and you ended at Santa Clara.
Now today, I want to jump forward really fast for a few seconds. Today you're a school teacher and the mayor of Oxnard. When you were in high school, what did you want to do?
Well, I don't know if I knew initially, maybe as a freshman or even as a sophomore, really what I wanted to do, but it was my freshman year was around the time that my dad was first elected. He was elected in 1972 for the first time and took office in 1973. It was in 1973 that I then went from elementary school to high school. And so that was even though I had been exposed to politics and I was very interested in it because my parents were very active.
Sure.
It was probably sometime around sophomore or junior year that I really started getting interested or more interested in politics. And if I'm not mistaken, it was in the 1976 election, my junior year, that I took part in a debate, and we represented presidential candidates. We actually met people that were related to Gerald Ford's son as a result of this whole thing.
Uh-huh.
And I kind of had a good idea maybe by junior year and senior year that I was really interested in following my dad's footsteps and getting into government.
Now I have to ask, in the debate, were you Gerald Ford or Jimmy Carter?
I actually was Jimmy Carter,
Oh.
and my opponent was Mark Helsema from Camarillo, who went to Santa Clara, and he was Gerald Ford.
Uh-huh.
And it just, our government teacher said, you're going to be Carter, you're going to be Ford. We didn't get a choice.
Okay.
And so I argued from Jimmy Carter's perspective, he argued from Gerald Ford's, and it was actually before the whole student body. So it was in the gymnasium, the Friedrich Pavilion, or the old gym at Santa Clara, actually the Coach C gym, and we had the debate before the whole student body, the whole
Now,
school.
you went on to college.
Uh-huh.
Where did you go?
I went to Ventura College for 2 years, and then I went to UC Santa Barbara.
Okay.
In 1981, I graduated from UC Santa Barbara and applied for the UC Capitol Hill program, and I was accepted, and I went to Washington just after graduating, and I worked for Arms Control and National Security Issues Interest Group, and after 3 months of being in Washington, I got Potomac fever and ended up staying till 1987.
Wow. Okay. So you didn't necessarily think about returning to Oxnard, at least immediately.
Well, actually, I always knew in the back of my mind that I would want to come back to Oxnard, and I had it in mind actually to go to Washington to get experience in the national government, get experience in politics. And so in the back of my mind, it was always something that I knew I'd eventually return to Oxnard. But being, younger, 21 years old, I was excited to be in a different place. And there's no more exciting place for somebody who's interested in history and politics than Washington.
Sure,
So,
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree. Now, your father, Supervisor John Flynn, I'm sure when you came back, you saw local politics quite easily, probably better perspective than most, I would think. What spurred your interest to get involved locally? Yes, I can understand that. You see your father and his work, but that didn't necessarily mean that you had to. What brought you to want to get involved with our community?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'll be honest that I was not particularly interested or enamored by local government. I was more interested in state and national government, specifically national government on the federal level. And so when I had lived in Ventura for a while, came back to the city of Oxnard, and I bought a house on F Street in the historic district, and there was a hospital, the former St. John's Hospital, right next door to where I lived. And the hospital, it had been promised, was going to be used initially for only an emergency room because a new hospital had been built.
Right.
The emergency room closed down, and the hospital just became kind of a skeleton or a ghost of its former self. And so I began to get active because the building looked bad. It was blighted, and there's a lot of trouble going on there. And so I got involved over that issue, and even then I wasn't necessarily interested, or I wasn't going to run for local office until I started having meetings with people. They were making promises over what they were going to do about the hospital, and they simply weren't delivering on the promises. And so as a result of it, I said to my wife, I really think I want to run for the city council. So I ran for the city council, and then found out on the evening that I was inaugurated that I had a conflict of interest for the hospital because I lived within 500 feet of the property.
Really?
And so I wasn't able to participate in decision making. But what I would do is I would come from behind the dais and I would speak as a member of the public. And now I understand that with conflict of interest, it's even stricter, that if you have a conflict, you're actually supposed to leave the building. So
Right.
now I know that, and I leave the building when any discussion about anything that I would ever have a conflict of interest over.
And personally, I know about conflict of interest rules or what, but you just taught me because I didn't know that being in the shadow of a building created a conflict of interest. But
Right.
now I know something I didn't know.
Absolutely.
When you became you became city council member, what were the hard issues at the time?
Well, when I ran for the city council in 2004, I was immediately interested in what I'd experienced ending and moving forward in a different direction about what I'd experienced over the old St. John's Hospital. And eventually, of course, it became Sycamore Senior Center. And that was the whole promise, that this former hospital would become this new senior center. And so I got really involved in that. And of course, my ideas running as a candidate is that I really wanted to have an impact on seeing that hospital transformed into a senior center. But I'll be honest with you, the issues that really bothered me were the changes that I had seen in the city, that I felt, because there were many positive things that had happened in the city of Oxnard, but there were a lot of things that I felt that were not positive for the city. And the first thing was graffiti.
Okay.
And I had noticed that in my neighborhood and many other neighborhoods, there was graffiti all over the place. Graffiti, many people associate with gangs, and there's a lot of truth to that. Not all people that are in graffiti are in gangs, but I mean, it's not a good sign. I mean, when people go into a town, they see graffiti, they want to stay away from that town because they think it's going to be violent. It's violent. It's going to be a dangerous place. So graffiti was actually my #1 objective, and we've done a lot actually in the city of Oxnard since 2004 on the issue of graffiti. Arguably not enough, and we need to continue. And the second issue I was really concerned about, that I'm still very concerned about, in fact I talk about it all the time, and I'm actually trying to move the council in this direction, is dealing with substandard housing and the overcrowding problem in the city of Oxnard. So really those two issues were major, graffiti, dealing with overcrowding and substandard housing in the city. And then I think finally just really getting neighborhoods that I remember what neighborhoods were like in the city of Oxnard when I grew up in this town. They were pristine. I mean, on the south end, half the friends I had that I went to school with at Santa Clara High School, they grew up on the south end. The neighborhoods were a tremendous source of pride. They were beautiful neighborhoods, well kept. And on the north end, of course, was very nice, and the neighborhoods were really kept up. And so I'd seen aging infrastructure, neighborhoods that were not quite the same as they used to be.
Right.
And that was really my interest, is getting Oxnard back to that high standard that I knew growing up as a kid.
Now, elected officials, and especially the first time that you get to an elected office, there are a lot of expectations. But reality is you're one of 5 people. Did you see any challenges in your vision?
Well, let's put it this way. When I was first elected in 2004, I was elected to city council, where I knew the city council members, because all of the city council members except for one had actually gone to Santa Clara High School. So they had graduated. They were older. They're older than I am, and they were older then, of course. So I knew them, and there was a lot of familiarity. And I kind of went into it not really knowing. Okay, I didn't really know what to expect. What I encountered was on some issues a lot of support and a lot of where I was able to work with the council on a lot of issues. And then I encountered a tremendous amount of opposition.
Right.
So that would actually, it was my I call it the birth of fire, and or the birth through fire, and that was from 2004 to 2008. And I oftentimes was at the odd end of a lot of 4-1 votes or a lot of 3-2 votes, and that was, of course, very frustrating. But I have to admit something, Dennis. I'd much rather start out in the minority and then later migrate to the majority than starting out in the majority and then becoming the minority. So I like to start. I mean, no one really wants to be in that position, but if I had a choice between the two, I would choose to be in the minority in the beginning and then migrate towards the majority. So.
We're going to take a pause right now. This is the O, and I look forward to hearing about Mayor Flynn's vision for Oxnard as well.
Thank you.
So we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Here we go. Welcome to the O. We're interviewing Mayor Tim Flynn today. And Mayor Flynn, you mentioned your upbringing, your attraction to Oxnard, and your foray into the City Council of Oxnard. Anytime that somebody comes to any government agency, you're not the one vote, you're one of 5. You have a bureaucracy, we are the government. First off, well, let's start with the positive. What was the success that you set back and you could say, hey, we did it?
Well, I think that's a really good question. I would say that the thing I felt from my first term that I was most successful at doing was asking questions that many people would say weren't being asked on the city council. So raising issues and raising questions that I felt needed to be addressed. And so I felt that was very successful. And I think, I was able to, get some feedback from the city council and on many occasions get the city council to kind of, buy into that and facilitate a really good conversation. But I think, my first term, the success I think was getting the land at Oxnard Boulevard and Gonzales Road preserved as a park. It had been designated as a park in the city's general plan. It was zoned for resource protection, meaning that the intention was to have something like a public facility. And when I first was elected in 2004, there was a proposal to build homes there.
Right.
And my colleagues on the council felt that because of the lack of money in the city, the lack of resources, that it would be better to build homes there, have the developer kick in for a swimming pool, and that would be the compromise. I didn't see that as a compromise. I felt that because of the Northeast community, the people were already packed in with narrow streets and almost non-existent front yards and backyards, that they really needed that park and they needed that open space. And so I think my accomplishment was working with the neighborhoods together, with the neighborhoods to make sure that that land did not get developed and or that it wasn't developed, and that eventually it would be left open so that a park could be built there. So, I mean, I would actually say that was by far, I think, my largest success or greatest success, and that was going on around 2004, 2005.
Right.
Of course, I was elected in 2004, 2005, 2006, and then of course after that decision. Because it was a 3-2 opposition at the time. The majority actually supported homes being built there. And actually afterwards, at times, it made it very challenging, really getting anything by the city council, because I think several of the council members probably thought I took it way too far, that I felt very passionate that the city had made a promise to the community and that I was simply upholding a promise, but I think maybe some of the council members saw it a little bit differently. So so I think that was a success, but it also brought on some real challenges later on. And I think the thing that didn't quite work out the way I expected it to, but actually it had a very positive outcome, was as a city councilman, I felt I was bringing the issue of traffic forward to the city council.
Sure.
And the city council at the time and the government at the time felt that we didn't have a traffic problem. A survey was done actually by the Chamber of Commerce, and it found out that over 70% or over 90% of the people in Oxnard felt that there was a severe traffic problem, and over 70% of the people actually would support what I worked with together with Richard Francis and Fred Rosamond to put forward the Oxnard Traffic Initiative.
Sure.
And the Oxnard Traffic Initiative ended up not succeeding, but what did succeed is highlighting and bringing attention to the issue of traffic. And today, the city of Oxnard has spent actually in the last, since 2008, approximately $8 million on something called the Intelligent Traffic System, which is going to be a traffic calming device, facilitate less waits at intersections, make sure that people are going to be less stressed out and do a lot more for traffic.
And so when do you think this might be coming up?
Well, the Intelligent Traffic System is actually up now, and what that means is that there are cameras at all the major intersections throughout the city.
Okay.
And
that's what those devices are.
That's what those devices are. And then there's a large control center.
Right.
And a traffic engineer is able to watch the intersections, and based on the flow of traffic, based on statistical flows of how many people are coming in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening, they can adjust the lights a little bit more precisely. If there are problems with an accident or something like that, they can maybe unfreeze in the other direction the lights.
Sure.
So it's actually up and running now, and they're just working out all the kinks. So it's taken since 2008. That's about 6 years to get this system installed and paid for. So although the Oxnard Traffic Initiative did not succeed, the issue of highlighting the problem of traffic and the feelings that the people of Oxnard had about traffic, that did succeed and did prevail. So it didn't work out exactly the way I would have wanted it to have worked out, but in the end, it worked out.
I remind many people, and I've noticed that a lot of folks that have lived here for many years, I believe, have a difficult time realizing that Oxnard is nearly 250,000 people.
That's absolutely correct. The official population of the city of Oxnard is somewhere in the neighborhood of 204, 205,000 people. Of course, the census doesn't count everybody. It might be closer to 215, 220,000 people. And you're right. I mean, it's literally probably 5, 6, 7 years from being 250,000 people.
And it still has that small town feel to it, I think.
Absolutely.
But the issues don't go away. The big town issues don't go away just because we think it's a small town.
Right.
And so you're dealing with that. Now, along with successes come challenges.
Yes.
Has there been something that that you really, your one item or maybe a couple items that you really was hoping would go a certain way, and so far just hasn't happened?
Well, let's say this. I can say some things. Things went in a positive direction, and some things maybe haven't gone as quickly as I would have wanted
Sure.
them. Last year, I gave a state of the city address before the Chamber of Commerce, and I came up with a 10-point jobs plan. And that 10-point jobs plan has not gone as quickly as I would want it to, but there have been many accomplishments. And in particular, it's about infrastructure jobs for the city of Oxnard. It's
Right.
really important, getting people back to work. Getting our service center at the city, and I'm pointing around going, where's the city? So right over here, getting the service center and our permit system to work and be more customer friendly. Also, and this is a very important thing, Dennis, I've said that the key to Oxnard's future is prosperity.
Right.
And I don't know if there's any mayor of any city that doesn't believe that prosperity isn't at the core of the future of the city. I believe that the issues I just raised with you, substandard housing, overcrowding, the issue of graffiti that we had mentioned, the fact Oxnard has violence and unacceptably, even though the police department has done an excellent job at making this community safe, we still have a lot of problems. We have gang violence, etc. I feel that the not the only, but the best way that we're going to cure these problems is through prosperity in the community. And prosperity is going to come through education, and I got to stress that more than anything else in the world. It's about getting an education, about getting training, about getting through high school, about kids doing their homework, about parents supporting their kids,
Right.
and emphasizing that, the most important thing that a parent can do is get their kid through school, make sure they do their homework, and get on to college or get on to a trade school for training.
And keep them active in the process.
Keep them active in the process. And what I'm looking to do, together with the City Council and the business community and the people of Oxnard, is to bring higher paying jobs to the city of Oxnard. And I'm in particular very interested in new economy jobs. What do I mean by new economy jobs? High tech, biotech, and medical research.
Right.
That really is a tremendous future. Those jobs are well-paying jobs. Also, manufacturing jobs that are not going to be. They're going to be, green-oriented. They're going to be jobs that can generate really high incomes. I mean, an example of that is Haas Automation. If we can get another Haas Automation in this town, get other companies that come in and start manufacturing, get people to work, and that's what I'm really centered on. That's what my outlook is. But again, it is very arduous. It's very difficult because the city's facing a lot of issues, and trying to forward an agenda that's specifically centered around economic growth and prosperity. No one on the city council disagrees with that. But
Right.
there's so many other competing things that we're dealing with.
Sure.
Infrastructure, streets, filling the potholes, repaving the streets, all the things that we're doing, it makes sometimes it very difficult to get it through. But I think we're going in the right direction.
I want to ask about your future vision of Oxnard, but first, and I'd be remiss, and believe me, I'd get a lot of phone calls and emails if I didn't mention, the police department. There are events that happen that get the ire of the public. There are policies that happen that do make the city safer. I think we both can agree. How can we bring the police department closer together with the community? Oftentimes, when people ask me, the role of the police department, the standard phrase is to serve and to protect. How can we? Is that an issue that you think that can be worked on? And how, from your position, how do you think we might be able to bring the community and the police department together, even at times of, apparent conflict?
Well, it's a good question. It's an excellent question. The first thing, Dennis, is, and I can't stress this more, Oxnard has, from my perspective, an outstanding police department. But as the chief of police, Jerry Williams, and I think she's doing a good job, as she has said to me, and I've worked with her, and the other council members have worked with her, she's looking to move the police department in a direction where police officers, which they're doing now, but it's always a self-improvement process, are problem solvers.
Right.
And we have problems in the community, issues. We have a community policing program right now. It's it's kind of in its initial stages, because we've had about somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 30 officers right now that are short of actually making that community program or community policing program a real, true, fully staffed and a viable one. But it's actually getting in and getting the hands to working more with the community, and that's what the officers are doing now. I used to teach at Pacifica High School. I taught there for 5 years. I'd ride my bike home from Pacifica to the historic district through the Colonia, and on numerous occasions I would see officers going door to door, knocking door to door, and that's the kind of thing, I think, more than anything else. It's obviously keeping the community safe. It's being trained. It's having the best equipment. It's having enough officers in the city to deal with the issues that the police department needs to keep the community safe. But most importantly, it's continuing that process of reaching out to the community, communicating.
Right.
And the more communication, the more contact there is between the police department, the city council, not just the police department, the city council, and the people of Oxnard, I think the better and safer this community is going to be. But I want to say, and in that question, Councilman McDonald has raised the issue in our recent strategic summit about the issue of community safety and community policing, and or the role of the community. And I've often said very, very similar things, that we expect the police to to protect and to serve us, which they do, but the police department can't do everything.
Right.
And what I'm looking to do is get more people in the city of Oxnard active in neighborhood councils, where I think there's a real chance to have an impact in your neighborhood. Neighborhood watches are extremely successful at curbing graffiti, at curbing break-ins into homes, at people in the community getting out, meeting other people in the community, working with the youth, inspiring the youth, setting some direction for these. A lot of younger people, especially the ones a lot of the kids I was teaching at Pacifica High School, they need leaders, they need leadership, and with the right leadership and the right direction, they're going to be productive. They're going to be tax-paying, hard-working, tax-paying people, and that's what the purpose of education is to lead kids in the right direction, provide some inspiration, and set them in the right direction.
And I think we both can agree. We're never going to get to the point that we're satisfied.
Right.
Right. But I appreciate your work and the police department's work to go in that direction. Finally, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what is your vision for Oxnard?
My vision for Oxnard is that every single neighborhood in this city is a safe, clean, attractive place to be. That Oxnard is at the cutting edge of not just with Oxnard's government, but everything that we do here in the city of Oxnard is a best practice for the rest of the state, the rest of the county, the rest of the cities in the county, the state of California, and this whole country to see. Oxnard not only has a model government, and it's an ethical government, and an upfront and honest and transparent government, but Oxnard and the way Oxnard does business is not something in any way that anybody should ever criticize or be ashamed of. It should be something that people are proud of, that they're proud of the city, they're proud of everything that's being done in the city, and the vision really is a prosperous, highly educated community. I mean, really, when it really comes down to it, Dennis, it's about education and it's about jobs. Education and jobs. Those are the two most important things, and that really is the future. So 10 years from now, 20 years from now, I want to see better schools in the city of Oxnard, higher scores, that Oxnard would be a source of why people would move into the city, not be a source of why people wouldn't want to live in the city, and that Oxnard as a community is the best place to live, and it has the best place to work.
It's a beautiful city. Unfortunately, I think you're right. In some senses, it's a bedroom city that we send a lot of work out. And yes, education, our kids are our future, I would agree.
Absolutely.
With that, I thank you very much.
Thank you.
For being my
Thank you.
inaugural guest
Thank you.
on the O. And I wish you luck and the city luck. And maybe 10, 20 years from now, we can dig this up. And hopefully we will be around to see it.
But hopefully you're not digging me up.
Or the opposite, yes.
Okay. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to you. And I want to thank Paul, Hector, and Darlene, who are behind the cameras, and everybody with OMAC that have helped us bring this together. And, the purpose of the show, the O, is to get people involved in Oxnard and highlight our accomplishments and our needs. And I appreciate you coming here, and please come again sometime.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.